good evening. It is 6:04 p.m. We are in the Nashua North Boardroom, and I'm calling this meeting of the Policy Committee to order. Present today are Ms. Darling.
Here.
Ms. Johnson.
Present.
Mr. Donovan.
Here.
And Ms. Carey.
Here.
Okay, so we have a quorum. So we have a very long agenda tonight. I don't know that we'll be able to get through it all, but my hope is that anything that we don't touch, we're able to move right along to April. From our first things are from cleanup from last time. So the last meeting, we had sent a couple of things to the board, and the board sent them back to have a little bit of more work done to them. So first we have IMDA and 2212. We had sent this one, I'm sorry, something's wrong with my printing of these. I don't have IMDA in my packet.
I can share.
Thank you. Thank you, I appreciate it. So no, I have 2212, I just don't have IMDA. I apologize to everyone. I share my printer with my husband who works from home. So I assume in all of his budget documents, when he goes to review them, right in the middle will be policy IMDA. IMDA is a silent meditation, pledge of allegiance, and patriotic exercises, and 2212 is the free exercise of religion. So at our last full board meeting, we had talked about combining patriotic exercises and free exercise of religion, and the board was not happy with the way that we had done it. Ms. Johnson, I wasn't at that meeting. I was participating over phone. Can you give us an idea of what the particulars were? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah, we didn't have the updated information. That's what it was. It was sent to, I guess, Ms. Kinsella, but it just, somehow it wasn't updated.
It wasn't in the board packet.
Right.
Okay.
Was it in the board packet? It wasn't updated. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think we just got the original one. So this is now the updated version of what we talked about our last policy meeting.
Yep, I see that we have put in now the part about free exercise of religion. So does anyone have any quibbles with this one at this point? No? All right. So I would like to send that back to the board if we are able. So I'm looking for a motion to send IMDA and 2212 back to the board.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, so I combined those in my motion. Probably that's not okay, but. Okay, the next policy is GBEBE, so long to say, which was the employment of relatives of persons with romantic relationships. I recall that one, and the question was, oh, here it is. I found it. It was on the back of my, sorry, that's embarrassing. The question was regarding friends and how do we define friends, and can we add friends to this policy? Ms. Carey. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure. The one thing, when this policy was amended, it was amended based on the NHSBA policy. So initially, it was just related employees, and the NHSBA added persons with romantic personal relationships. So this policy, the biggest change in here, it's actually defining how do you, what is a person with a romantic personal relationship? So it spells that out. I wasn't at the last meeting, but I believe the issue came up, should we include friends? that would be next to impossible to even, how do you define a friend? So that's why this policy was taken with the changes from the NHSBA policy. Because you can't really define a friend. We all have a different definition of what a friend is to us, whereas this policy is actually spelling out what a romantic personal relationship is, in addition to family, which you can identify, a brother or sister. Those you can define. So my recommendation was to adopt the policy as amended through the NHSBA, which is what we did.
Okay. Any thoughts or questions on that? No? Okay, so I would be looking for a motion to send GBEBE back to the board for approval with no changes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Sorry, I just want to make sure I get it all. And in relation to that, I would also like to send policy 8220, related employees, which this is replacing, to the board for, to be rescinded. So
Are you looking for that motion?
I'm looking for
So
that
moved.
motion. Okay?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So the next thing
Ms.
that.
Raymond?
Yes.
Maybe I'm missing, maybe my brain has gone crazy. Did we rescind 2212?
Oh, let's move to send that to the board.
Yeah.
To be rescinded.
I figured my short-term memory really went on me.
Okay. I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
At least you caught it.
Okay. Substitute teachers was the next item on our list. And we had sent to the board previously policy GCG with a recommendation to rescind, to replace and rescind policy 8227.1. There was a question about contract services, since we are starting to do some contracted services. And I see that that has been added to item 4. Does anyone have any questions or issues about that? No?
No.
No? Anything to add, Ms. Carey? No. Okay, so having added that in, I'm looking for a motion to send GCG back to the board for approval.
So moved.
Second.
I need to have some sort of shorthand for everyone's names. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, aye, me too. Okay, so having sent that one to the board, I'm looking for a motion to recommend to the board that we rescind policy 8227.1, which GCG replaces.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 0. Okay, so that takes care of our leftovers from last time. That was wonderful and fast. I love that. Okay, so moving on, we have a bunch of new items to cover this month. And it looks like we have a bunch of ones that are kind of related to HR and general items for the district, and then we have a bunch that are regarding finance. Mr. Donovan has come to help us with the finance one, so I would ask that we take numbers 10 through 14 first, which are the finance items, and then go back to the other ones. Does anyone have any objection to that or thoughts?
Well, I think the only thing there is that the 10 through 14 are the ones that we need, part of what we need to do here is these are a set of required policies that the federal government requires if we're going to be involved with federal monies and federal grants.
Okay,
So part of what they require is not only the new ones listed 4 through 8 or the updated ones, but also that we review all of these policies
Okay.
at least every 4 years. So 10 through 14, we're not suggesting any changes. They're policies that exist now, but you just basically take another look at them and approve them because supposedly you're supposed to do that every 4 years.
okay, which I know that Ms. Bishop has been trying to do. She's given me a list and a proposal for which exact ones to review each month to get us up to date with having all of them reviewed by 2023, which is really ambitious. So, Mr. Donovan, are you saying that we should just go through them in order?
Yeah, I think you could do that.
Okay, let's do that then. All right, so the next policy is GADA, Employment References and Verification, and prohibiting, aiding, and abetting sexual abuse. That one is only one page. For some reason, I thought it was really long. I think I'm getting confused with another one. Go ahead, Mr. Donovan.
Yeah, the DAF is the big one.
DAF, okay, thank you. So, does anyone have any questions about GADA? This is a new policy for us, but we've gotten it directly from the New Hampshire School Boards Association and applicable federal law. Questions or concerns? Did you find it, Ms. Johnson?
No.
I went right in order instead of taking them out of order. Sure.
I can share mine, Paula.
It looks like that. Yeah, when I flipped it, for some reason I thought this was the longer policy, but it's not.
So one of the concerns that was brought to my attention with this one was the fact that the prohibition does not apply if
3D.
yes, thank you, 3D. If the investigations remained open and there have been no charges filed against the individual within 4 years. I know that for felonies in the state of New Hampshire, the statute of limitations that police have from time of being reported to the time of going to trial is 6 years.
Okay.
So I didn't know if there would be any way that we could consider it being within 6 years instead of 4.
Ms. Carey?
Sure. What I can, this is actually, this is a policy that also came as a result of, being able to, we didn't have any policy right now. Basically what it's basically saying that we all need to act in good faith when we're giving references, and if we know that someone engaged in illicit sexual misconduct, then we, involving a minor or student, then we can't give them a good reference and say that they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. So this, if you look under in addition to this prohibition does not apply if, that's actually taken directly from the federal law, which is U.S. Code Title 20 that's cited at the bottom. So that whole section is federal law, and what it's saying is it doesn't apply if 1 and 2 and 3. So it basically, when you look at number 3, so 1 and 2 have to apply for the policy. And then if you look at number 3, only one of those, at least one of those 4 conditions cited have to be met. Then the prohibition doesn't apply. So it's not just that there have been no charges filed for that 4 years. It could be the matter had been officially closed or any of those other items that are listed, A, B, and C. So 1 and 2 have to be satisfied, and then at least one of those sub-bullets on number 3. And again, that's taken, verbatim from the law. So it's federal law. Okay.
And we're required to, just to be clear, all of our employees are required to report concerns to like DCYF or law enforcement.
Yeah.
So no one is sitting on this information. But this policy is about, I find this policy confusing as well. This policy is saying that we cannot give a reference unless the matter's been, all of these things have happened, right?
We can't help someone get a job and say they're the greatest thing since sliced bread if we know that they engaged in illicit sexual misconduct. So that's pretty much what this, and right now we don't even have this on the books. This is a result of, what Dan's going to be talking about in some of the other policies. This was one, so this is actually taken verbatim from the NHSBA, the state, which the language in it is verbatim to the federal law in this regard.
Okay.
Okay. I'm hesitant to change anything if it is exactly the wording that we took from a law.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Ms. Johnson, any questions or concerns? Okay. All right, so having learned that, I would be looking for a motion to send GADA employment references and verification prohibiting aiding and abetting of sexual abuse to the full board for approval.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
thank you. I should just pre-fill all these things out. Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So the next one is GBEC, which is drug-free workplace, drug-free schools. Ms. Carey and I were speaking earlier, and we did notice a typo in the first line after the red paragraph. It says, "The district will provide a drug-free and alcohol workplace." That should say drug and alcohol-free workplace. So whatever motion we make, I'd like it to include that grammatical change, because it changes the meaning. Did anyone have any other concerns or questions about this policy? I know that there are federal laws and state laws that are pretty specific about this as well.
In 7D, it says that a verbal or written warning may be given for minor or incidental alcohol violations. What exactly is considered a minor or incidental alcohol violation?
I think we'd have to look at that.
I don't know.
I think we'd have to look at the situation if we had to deal,
Okay.
we'd have to look at the situation and see, look at all the facts.
Okay. So it sounds like there's some discretion that HR can use depending on what the situation is, which is interesting. So the changes on this one are we added the red paragraph at the beginning to define the workplace, which I think is helpful. We added alcohol all over the place, and we added number 5, which is regarding RSA 193B, which is important because we didn't have that in there. Ms. Johnson?
Thank you. Where we have the signs around this is drug-free school zone, I believe Stellos is part of that because that's a school facility. Doesn't have to be posted or people have to know. I think it was like at one time 100 feet. You couldn't be within 100 feet of the school zone.
I'm not sure, I can look that, I can get back to you on that, I'm not sure.
Okay, because I think so, because when we built Stellos, I was the one who kept saying, if it's a school building, then it needs to be posted that it's a school building and that all the signs have to be up there. So people understand drug and alcohol-free zone because it's part of the school district. So where we're saying this with all the signs, I guess the question is, have we signaged every place in the district so people know school facilities? So it's great to have this on the books, but you also have to let people know that these are school facilities and it's a drug-free alcohol zone. And also, I believe at that time too, tobacco was part of it, that you couldn't smoke on school property.
Yep.
So that's the other question.
There's
That's in another policy?
Yep.
Perfect.
There's a whole special tobacco one
Who would think?
that we can talk about. All right, so regarding drugs and alcohol only is what did I do? GBEC. I'm looking for a motion to send this one to the full board for approval. And just to note, this one hasn't been updated since 2011, so I'm glad that we're looking at it. So, anyone want to make that motion, or should I make it
moved.
myself? Okay.
With the grammatical error,
Yes, as discussed this evening.
yes. Second.
Thank you. I'm going to write that down, to full board. That is not a good sentence, but that's okay. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Then we're skipping around a little bit. Oh, ADC, that's the one that why don't I have that one? That's the tobacco one, right, I'm just looking. DAF. I don't have it either. But I saw it.
DAF is the big one.
DAF is the big one. I think we just
It's
have
more on the
them,
back of the packet.
yeah, I think we just have them, like DAF kind of sitting out there in the middle of everything. So I'm going to put this over here. Okay, ADC, which is, what is going on with my pages? I apologize, everybody. ADC is prohibitions regarding use and possession of tobacco products, e-cigarettes, and e-liquids in and on school facilities and grounds. Please notice that we've changed quite a bit on this policy to kind of make sure that we have included vaping, which is the new cool thing, but is still extremely unhealthy and ought to be prohibited. I don't think there's any other major changes. Oh. Under employees? Yep, under employees. I got there. I just had to flip the page and see my scribbles. Under C, employees, we got a little too excited about crossing stuff out. And I'd like to keep that first sentence that says, no employee shall use any tobacco product, device, e-cigarette, e-liquid, or liquid nicotine in any facility, any school vehicle, comma, there's no commas there, why aren't there commas? Or anywhere on school grounds maintained by the district. And then we don't need the line about specific employment provisions of that because we have that elsewhere. Right here, the next lines. So we're not going to put that in GBED, we're just putting it here. Does anyone have any questions or concerns on this policy?
Now I'm going to talk about the signs.
Okay.
At one time, there was, I think it was mentioned in here that you had to be about 100 feet from the schools. Stellos was considered school facility, so there was no smoking on that premise either. I used to say, if nobody enforces it, why sign it, why do anything like that? But I'm questioning that.
So there's no sign at Stellos?
I don't remember if there is or whatever.
'Cause,
At
I
this
mean,
point, I never
certainly-
walk down there anymore, so I can't tell you what's at Stellos.
Right, I mean, we certainly don't want people smoking during our sporting events or, any other times
Just
in
have to be
Stellos.
consistent.
If you look on page 1, Paula, it does identify facility, though, but it doesn't have your 100 feet. And it looks like that's the same language that's in the NHSBA. Let me just pull that. But
Because
if you
I
look on-
remember one time, I think it was state law, because I love long-term memory, it's better than short-term. But I remember something about that 100 feet, something to that effect.
We can,
Yeah, it looks like, because this language is verbatim to the NHSBA language from the state on facility. can look into it, though. I'm happy to circle back on that.
I mean, I guess if we need to update it, we can always bring it back for correction rather than holding it.
Yeah, I would think so.
Because basically, the language that was added is the NHSBA language.
Right, but
It's been updated.
But I'm not too sure if there's an RSA on school facilities and premises.
Right, I mean, there's a bunch of them. RSA 155, 64 through 67, 126 K6, and 126 K7. But I'm not aware that any of those say like 100 feet.
Right.
But what we can do is perhaps ask Sean Smith what signage is there.
Right.
And then we can see if there's the 100 feet rule.
Right. Somehow I remember that.
Right. It could have been there at some point and then been dropped. I don't know.
Just checking to make sure that we're within the law
Yep.
On the signage.
Yeah,
But in terms of the policy,
and the policy, too.
well, the policy is, I feel that the policy language is within the law. In terms of the signage, I think I'd like to look at that as a separate issue.
Yep.
Sounds good to me.
All right. So for both of those, so we skipped number 6, DAF, and we'll come back to it. Okay, so, I wrote it on the wrong spot. Shit. Sorry. I apologize, everyone, for my slip of the tongue there.
Could be
So
worse.
this one goes down here, and then we'll come back to DAF. So, apologies, everyone. It's been a challenging day today. Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to send policy ADC, tobacco products in and on school facilities and grounds, to the full board with the following change. Number C, employees, section employees, take out the strike-through of the first sentence beginning no employees and ending maintained by the district.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, I'm also an aye. Gonna remember myself. Okay. And now we are getting into the fiscal items. So we should go back to DA, DAF, DDA. Shall we dive in with the giant one, DAF, first?
Yes, we'll call this the granddaddy of them all.
Okay. So let me just make a little arrow on my thing to indicate. Okay.
Okay, so this policy is, we've been audited by our auditors as part of our grant funds have been audited a number of years in a row. Now that there's, the ESSER funds are out there, and there's millions and billions of dollars that are out there, the federal government is requiring that all school districts and other entities that are going to be granted and use these funds to get their paperwork in order. Now, many of these things that are in DAF, we had probably policies, practices and procedures, I would say. There's nothing in here that's like, oh, why would we do that or we don't do that. Most of these things were practices or procedures. There were a few policies, but not to the extent that the auditors thought we should have. So they suggested go to the NHSBA, look up DAF. That policy, once approved, will cover almost all of your needs so that you will be you'll be fine with the federal government moving forward. So if you look at the front page of DAF, it talks about all various items when we're working with grants, like allowability. What that means is what is allowable in the grant. So each grant has very specific definition of what's allowable, but there's also sort of general things that are allowable. You can't supplant, which means you can't take things from your operating budget and put it into your grant. There's sort of cost principles. There's a whole I think that's probably the largest part of this, if it's a direct cost versus an indirect cost. So there's a whole series of items defined under allowability. Then there's other pieces. The second part talks about cash management, and that you manage the cash, that when you're paying out vendors, charging them to grants, that you pay them before you request the funds back, and that you control those funds in a way that's responsible and auditable. Then procurement, that you use purchase orders, that you follow your procedures that you have internally, as well as the procedures that the federal government requires that you follow. The thing is, most of the procedures in the Nashua School District, when it comes to purchasing, are more constraining than what the federal government requires. So if that's the case, you can use your own. But let's say, for example, Nashua decided that we're not going to bring anything over $50,000 for approval to the board, and the federal government said, no, that's $25,000, you'd have to use the federal government. But we're more constricting than the federal government is in all our purchasing. And then there's inventory management. When you buy equipment with the federal grant, you need to track it, and if you're going to dispose of it, you need to get approval to dispose of it. The good thing about that is they've increased the level of the definition of equipment. It used to be like a computer used to be equipment.
Okay.
But they've kind of moved on and increased the amount there. And then there's travel reimbursement. Most of our travel, we have limited travel reimbursement, but most of our policies do cover that. This just defines it. And time and effort reporting, that's basically when people are working on grants, they have to sign a form on a regular basis, and I think the least amount, you have to do it a minimum of twice a year, saying that, yes, I worked these hours on this grant doing what I was supposed to do. You'll see that like at BAE and the federal contractors, they're much more strict, but so we do get that time and effort reporting. We have been doing that, but we didn't sort of have it in a policy that we were doing that, but we had been doing that. And then the reconciliation of the grants, obviously, that's something we do on a regular basis. So that's what this big policy is. You will notice there's parts of it that are in yellow, and what those are is that's where we took pieces of our practices or procedures and included them in this policy, okay? So I think that makes this policy even stronger. But as you can see, most of the items, there's not a ton of yellow in there.
Thank you, Mr. Donovan. That was one of my first questions was, what's the yellow? So these were added to the New Hampshire School Board Association sample policy?
Yes.
Okay. I have to say, it has been very helpful over the last year and a half to be part of the School Board Association and have access to all of these proposed sample policies that have been already vetted through their legal team.
This would have been a bear if we didn't have this as a guide.
Yeah.
Because if you ever go look at the federal government regulations, whoa. I mean, it's just page after page after page. And it references things here and there, and it takes an awful long time to pour through them.
Okay, so I have a couple other questions, but I'll turn it over to the members.
Please, you first.
Okay, so not really a lot. I'm just wondering if there are any legal references that need to be included in this. I noticed that part of the policy here on page 7, it references the Electronic Fund Transfer Act. Do we need to have that down at the bottom under references? And then there's another one on the next page regarding US DOE requirements, 2 CFR 200, that looks like a law.
Yes, those, I mean, that's what I was talking about, they're federal regulations, they call the CFR.
Right, so is that different? I guess my question is,
No, I mean, are you talking about the federal law and regulations?
right, so do those things have to be added at the bottom under the reference section? Like usually if there's an RSA or some sort of federal law, we have it listed at the bottom of the policy. And I noticed several places in here where we have what looks to me like laws, having just, glanced at them, but I don't know what's the difference between a law and a regulation and do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I honestly don't know the answer to that question, if you'd have to reference them or not.
Okay, I mean, they're in here, so clearly we're following them and we're putting very clearly that you have to follow them. It's just format.
Did you take this was directly from the NHSBA?
Yes.
So, yeah, the citations, as long as you've cited it in it, this is the way that the NHSBA,
This is the way that the NHSBA has done this, as long as we've cited it, and then we have our references at the end.
Right, so
Be fine.
mine doesn't have any references at the end. Does yours? Am I missing a page?
No, it
So
doesn't.
that's my question. Can we pull out the references and put them at the end? Or do we not have to? It's weird because we do it on all the other ones.
Let me take a look at this
Okay.
policy, and I can get back to you on that.
All right, is this something where the committee would feel comfortable sending it to the board with the allowance for Ms. Carey to add legal references at the end if required? That way it doesn't have to stay here for another month while she looks into it?
Right, I think we can make the motion to accept this, send it to the full board with any additional information if needed
Yeah,
from Ms. Carey
okay,
for references.
for references, okay. What was my other question?
Because if we need it, it's just one page that we'd just have to correct,
Right.
the
it's just-
bottom of the page.
Just add the references.
Right, that's it. But I think other
Which
than
is a-
that, we should be
It's a
able to.
formatting issue and not a
Right.
significant change.
What's the issue?
Okay. And then my last question on this one was regarding DDDA, which is on our list tonight, which was kind of our old grant policy, which it looks like we're keeping. Does this one, I guess my question is, the auditors feel like this one is necessary in addition to our little one-pager? Yes?
Yes, and
Okay.
the DDA, we sort of changed to non-federal grant funds because this covers the federal grant funds. We figured we'd keep this for any state grant funds or any other potential grant funds.
Okay, and then, that wasn't my last one, I lied, but it's related. Ms. Carey and I had discussed my tangential thinking about if it references another policy. We have all of those other policies on the list, right? Like it references DAF, that's this one. Why would it reference the DAF?
Yeah, there's a number of them, I think, mentioned, they're in yellow,
Yeah,
yeah, so we do have those, yes.
okay.
I think a bunch of them are actually here tonight.
Yeah, that's what I was asking, just making sure that we get all of those here so that we can make sure that they all flow together and we don't have one that's outdated. I'd hate to have a reference to something that doesn't make sense anymore. Okay, having said that, can we please have a motion to send DAF, Administration of Federal Grant Funds, to the full board for approval with legal references added if necessary?
So moved.
Okay?
Second.
Hold on one second. I didn't leave myself enough room. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay. Darling, aye. blanked on your name there for a second. And now I don't know how to write it. Okay, 3-0, great. So now we move on to policy DA, which is fiscal resource management. And honestly, I didn't see any changes except for taking out the reference because it doesn't make sense to have a reference to a procedure.
Exactly, that's really the only change.
Okay? Did anyone have any questions or comments or concerns on this one? Nope. Okay, then I'm looking for a motion to send policy DA to the full board for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. And I know it feels weird to not make any changes and send it to the board, but we're supposed to review and reapprove all of our policies every 4 years to make sure that they're fresh. Nashua hasn't been awesome at that, but we're going to make it happen. All right, all in favor say aye.
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 Okay, aye, me too. All right, so next I have DDA, which is now non-federal grant funds at materials and services. So we're really just changing it to add the word non-federal at the beginning, since we
Yes,
have
so
the whole
we'll
big one for
still-
federal grants.
Right, so we'll still follow the policies here as far as approval and things for the non-federal as well as the federal.
Okay, and this is the one where we actually talked about this a few weeks ago at one of the prior meetings about what grants require prior approval to apply for and which ones require prior approval to accept. So we had something come before the board where a grant was applied for and then they were asking us to accept the funds or discuss the funds. And several members were like, well, wait a second, when did we agree to even apply for this grant? This policy, which we've had, says that as long as it's less than $100,000, district staff are free to apply for whatever grants they feel are appropriate for their programs. But then we have to approve it if the grant amount is more than $5,000. So I think that applies to the one that was last meeting, the presentation about the justice one. They've applied for it. When they get approved for the funds, then they'll need our approval to accept those funds. Okay. So I'm looking for a motion to send DDDA to the board with the following change, adding non-federal to the beginning of the title.
So moved.
Okay,
I'll second.
that's a fun change.
I was looking at something, so she
I beat you to it.
beat me to it.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, next I have, ooh, look at that, we're on number 10 already. We are doing great. Pat myself on the back here.
Do not jinx us.
Well, I don't want to get done too early because then I'll just have to sit here until Nashua plays rehearsal is over. All right, policy DID, inventory management. I have to be honest, I only skim these because, again, these aren't things that I feel like I have any kind of knowledge of or expertise in. So, any questions or concerns? No? Okay. I noticed that we did approve it in 2019, so it hasn't been 4 years yet, but
Right.
I say let's do it again anyways.
And it's more covered in more detail, because the last time we had an audit, they said you need an inventory management policy, so we put it in place. That's where
Right.
that's the genesis of this policy. Then, when they came back with the ESSER funds and said, well, no, you need more information on your inventory management, that's one of the sections in DAF in the large policy.
Oh, okay.
So we said, well, we could have gone through and said, is this in here, is that in there? Why don't we just keep them both for now?
Okay. In case we have stuff that doesn't come from the grant.
Exactly.
Okay. I noticed this one doesn't have the CFR, capital expenditures, et cetera. It doesn't have that as a legal reference. So I would guess that means it doesn't have to be a legal reference because this one's gone through already. Okay. I am looking for a motion to approve DID with no changes unless anybody has any questions. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Johnson.
There's a typo.
Oh, I missed it.
If you want to be consistent on all of the procedures above met the requirements of 2, should be C period, F period, R period, if you want to be consistent. Just a minor change.
2 CFR, 2 CFR, 2 CFR. Where is it not? Oh, at the bottom.
At the bottom.
2 period, C, 2C period, F period, R period, on the last,
Want to be consistent.
I do, on the last sentence. So, all right. So, I'm going to make the motion that we send DID inventory management to the full board with the minor grammatical change, adding the periods after C, F, and R on the last sentence.
So moved.
Okay. Thank
Second.
you. I just want to write it out, so Tara has exactly what we are asking for between C, F, and R in the last. Wait, I made it, didn't I? Well. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay. DID. DJ. Purchasing.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
So this policy is more general. Purchasing / procurement is covered in the grant in a more specific way, but this is a purchasing policy for the district related to other purchasing, non-grant related. It is one of the ones that is mentioned in DAF that does exist, so.
So my question was, why do we have DJ and DJB? I mean, one of them's really, DJB is much longer than DJ, but why wouldn't we just put the DJ part as part of DJB?
I think that was a Tara thing, but the DJB, sort of the procedures, the DJ's more of a general statement, and the DJB is more specific to the actual procedures.
Okay, because the legal references are the same. Oh, look, this one has the 2 CFR under legal references. We need to be consistent. Well, if DJ is referenced in the big one, the DAF, then we probably need to keep it or change the references there. It just seems weird to have both of them.
Well, it says in DAF, it says, procurement transactions shall also conform to the provisions of the district's documented general purchase policy, DJ and DJB.
Yeah.
So DJB does have specific dollar amounts associated with items and lists the items that don't require a purchase order. So there's just a lot more specificity in the.
Right. So it looks like DJ is saying who's responsible, and then DJB is saying how it's going to happen.
Yes.
Yeah, DJ is your policy statement itself,
Okay.
and then this is the how-to, so
Okay.
it's fine to keep them separate.
And then the legal references disclaimer, I've never seen that before. And I don't understand it. Anyone else have a question on that? No, just me.
No, it's on the GADA too.
Oh, down the bottom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting, it's a formatting, but We are supposed to, when they have put legal references, we are supposed to include them on the policy, or we actually added a statement as well. If you go on to the board policies itself, there's a statement on there.
Right, there's just a disclaimer that was, see? It's weird. All right, I don't have a problem with it. So I'm looking for a motion to send DJ purchasing to the board.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Do we need to discuss anything else with DJB?
No, I don't think so.
Nope, okay, let's move to send DJB to the full board.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
I'm sorry, did you want to give us any education about DJB more than that, Mr. Donovan? No?
No.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So now I'm on DKC, which is, which is expense reimbursements, which hasn't been looked at since 2007. And it looks like, Mr. Donovan, you don't have any changes that you'd like to have.
No, as we just saw with the previous policies, the DKC and DKCR, the one right after it, once again, one is more of the general policy statement, and then the actual details on how things will be done is DKCR.
Okay. One question that I had about it is, should they have different titles?
Different lettering, you mean?
Yeah, no, they have different, DKC and DKCR, I like that, because, like, the policy is the overarching one, and then the R one is usually like an addendum, or the, the process by which you do it. But they're called expense reimbursements and expense reimbursement.
May I make a recommendation to call it expense reimbursement procedures? And then you're consistent with the other policy we just went over?
Yeah. That makes me happier. Anybody else? Okay. Does anybody else have any questions about these two? No? Okay. So I'm looking for a motion to send DKC expense reimbursements to the board for approval, as is.
So moved.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And then I'm looking for a motion to send DKCR to the full board with one change of adding procedures to the titles, so it reads expense reimbursement procedures.
So moved.
Okay. I'll second it. Woo. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. That is all I have on my list. And I apparently have a bunch of things that printed twice for no reason whatsoever.
And we were worried we wouldn't get through it all.
I was. Why is this so many pages? How many pages is it supposed to be? 3, right? 1, 2, 3. There it goes. Okay. That's great. I didn't think we were going to get through all of this.
It was easy.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Dream team.
Exactly right.
Do we do? Okay, next month, I think we have some HR policies in the A's
We have several, yeah.
to look forward to, so that'll be fun. I will be out at least 2 weeks, Monday next week, and then the week after that. And typically, I meet with Mr. Parker or Miss Carey the first or second week of the month to set the agenda. Are either of you interested in doing that, or should I work on setting it with her before I go out?
What day of the week usually?
I'm like so flexible, it's whenever they can fit me
Okay,
in.
because I know Wednesdays, I'm tight. Tuesdays and Wednesdays are not my good days. I don't have a problem doing it. If you want to contact me, Miss Carey, and just let me know, and we can sit down and kind of go over the policies.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson, I appreciate it.
No problem.
So usually it's like an hour. And I don't have any other requests. I do have this handy dandy list from Ms. Bishop, where she has created the entirety of all the way till July 2024 to get everybody on track with reviewing them all the policies every 4 years. Yeah, there's a few in here that we'll likely get to, and I think that Ms. Carey also has this list. I know Mr. Parker does. So we try and put what the administration needs in a timely manner, and then we go back to what we need to do to comply with our requirement. It's super fun.
I'll tell you, I think I like finance being a chair. It's a lot easier than having to go through all these policies and figuring them out.
You do, and once we pick them, then Ms. Carey or Mr. Parker or Mr. Donovan has to go pull out the New Hampshire School Board's one and compare them and then try and reconcile them. I love it. I think it's really fun and interesting, but
I give them credit for all the work that they do, because this is a lot of work.
it is.
And in time, and doing everything else that they're supposed to be doing in their daily jobs. So I thank Mr. Donovan and Ms. Carey a lot for all the hard work. You're welcome.
I will also second that. I'm on a roll tonight.
I agree, and thank you, Mr. Donovan, for coming this evening. I know
you.
you have budget with us tomorrow night, too, so.
That twice in 1 week is a treat for me, so.
That's lovely. All right, so I don't have anything else for tonight. Honestly, I didn't think we'd get done this so fast, or else I would have put more. All right, so I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so we are adjourned at 7:01 PM.